You asked me if an ordinary person, by studying hard, would get to be able to imagine these things like I imagine them. Of course. I was an ordinary person who studied hard.
Yo, what's up guys and welcome back. This is my very special guest, Mr. Nelson Dellis.
What's up guys?
Nelson is a 4-time memory champion. Now, what does that mean? What is a memory champion exactly?
It's, I've won a championship where they test your memory 4 times.
And what's one of the hardest things that you've had to do to test your memory? Because a lot of people are thinking, I mean, how hard can memory testing be?
Well, it can be pretty hard. Sometimes it's memorizing decks of cards for an hour, or as many digits as you can for an hour.
For an hour?
Yeah.
How many digits can you memorize in an hour?
About 2,000.
2,000 individual numbers?
Yeah, think of like a 2,000 digit long phone number. Yeah.
She better be worth it. That's actually really great. To somebody like me who just got into this memory stuff. By the way, I found Nelson through a documentary on Netflix right now. What's that documentary called?
Memory Games.
Memory Games. He's featured in it, and that's kind of how I found out about him. He also has a YouTube channel where he teaches a lot of really cool memory hacks and memory tricks to improve your memory, not just for championship memory stuff, just for everybody, which is why I wanted to bring him on the channel and feature him today. What we're going to be learning with this chap over here is, first of all, we're going to learn how to create a mind palace. A mind palace, it sounds fictitious. You don't want to be like, you know, at your friend's house and be like, sorry, I gotta go to the mind palace, and then just like, it's nothing weird like that, right?
No, not at all. It's a very pleasant experience, I believe.
So in a nutshell, what's a mind palace?
A mind palace is basically a place that you know very well that you mentally map in your mind, and you walk through it mentally, placing mnemonics for the things you'd like to memorize.
Right, okay. And so by mnemonics, you mean like imagery,
associations, something memorable to represent the thing you're trying to remember.
and you leave that in like different rooms and locations in that place. Now usually that place, like for me, I chose my home, which is the place that I know best.
Right.
And I also have another mind palace, which is my office, another place that I know really well. How hard is it to create a mind palace?
Super easy. I mean, our brains are really good at remembering spatial information. So think of especially the places that you see all day long, where you live, your bedroom, your office, your way to work. Those are memory palaces right there waiting for you to start using.
Awesome. And that's something that you use in absolutely everything you do in terms of memory, right? Like almost everything.
Almost everything, especially the things that have a sequence to it, like a list type thing or a deck of cards, the order. Memory palace is amazing for keeping those orders preserved. And
you won't look super crazy doing it. This isn't Benedict Cumberbatch, going through his Jennifer Cumber snitch, Bandidar Bumblebutch.
Yeah.
This isn't him going through his head and like getting all crazy. This is literally a place you can just think about and get to. Which I thought was really cool. I always thought it was kind of fictitious when I first heard about it, so I'm really happy it was a real thing.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy that it was actually quite easy
Sure.
to learn. So we're going to teach you guys not only how to create your own memory palace, which is awesome. Also, we're going to teach you how to create information that you can store in that memory palace. So you need the place and you need the things to put in the place. And for that, we're going to teach you a system called
the major system. It's basically a phonetic code to help you remember numbers.
So without any further ado, Nelson's going to take it away and he's going to explain to you, first of all, how to create a memory palace. So if you got a piece of paper and a pencil and you want to take some notes, by all means. And after that, he's going to teach you how to create imagery that you're going to place in your mind palace. Guys, check out Nelson's channel. It's linked below. Let's get into learning this right now.
All right, so let's talk about our first memory palace together. So what I want you guys to do is to maybe take a piece of paper or just close your eyes and imagine you walking up to the front door of your house or apartment or whichever place is comfortable for you. Now imagine opening the doors, right, and scanning the room. And what I want you to do is choose 3 kind of locations around the room that you could place an item in your mind, all right? And once you have them, number them 1, 2, and 3. Now I'm gonna place some images for you, and once you've chosen those 3 locations, I want you to try and place the things I'm about to explain on those locations. They'll be a bit weird. That's the whole point of this. The weirder, the better, the more memorable they will be. So I want you to picture on the first location, the famous magician, Houdini. And you're standing there and you hear this zoom right by your ear, right? So zoom. And it's near by you, right? And it's a car. And inside this car is Houdini. So I want you to picture that image, but those 3 key words, zoom, near, and car. And just try to make it as weird as possible. Add Houdini to the mix. He's in that car, he's zooming by you, really close to you. Maybe it's part of his magic trick, a death-defying stunt, whatever. Then the next location, this is gonna be position number 2 in your memory palace. I want you to picture David Copperfield. Okay, he's next. And imagine he's sobbing into a tissue, all right? Just, he's so sad, whatever. Maybe one of his illusions went horribly wrong, right? He actually sawed someone in half. But he's sobbing into a tissue, and maybe he puts a leash around himself and walks himself off stage. Okay, totally bizarre, but those key 3 words there are sob, tissue, and leash. And then finally, our last location, position number 3, I want you to picture David Blaine, right? He's a man on the street doing some casual card tricks, and I want you to picture that suddenly he soars, right? He soars into the sky or the ceiling of this location. Up above it, he's floating. He soars, and then he soars even higher, and then you realize that he's playing a board game. He pulls out a board game out of thin air, and he starts playing, moving some pieces around on this game board. All right, so for those 3 key words, it's soar, again, and game. So now you have these images placed. The way the Mind Palace works is all you have to do is mentally go back to that same pathway through the locations that you chose, and the images should be there. Now, typically the images should represent something meaningful. And from what I told you, it sounds like they were pretty random words, right? But actually, they do represent something useful. And in this case, they are the birth dates of those 3 famous magicians. So now that you have your Mind Palace mapped out, I'm gonna show how those birth dates that I mentioned actually translate into those words. And that translation process is what's called the major system. It's a way to turn these complicated things to memorize, like numbers, into things that are easy to memorize, like words, simple words, right? Like zoom, near, soar, game, all those. So to learn how to translate between numbers and words, we need to learn the code. So here's what the list looks like. Basically, each of the 10 digits, 0 through 9, represent a consonant sound. So what you can do is with words, whenever you hear a consonant in that word, you know how to translate that back to a digit. And so now, every time you look at a digit or a pair of digits or triplets, you can then create these words. And the way the words are created is you can fill in vowels anywhere you please, just as long as it has the consonants to represent the actual digits. So let's take a look at each of the numbers and the consonants that they represent. So 0 is going to represent the Z or S sound. Again, it's important to note that it's the sound, not quite always the letter. So this is a Z or S sound, right? Which can be a Z, S, or C even sometimes. And the way you can remember that is 0 starts with a Z. That's Z, S, S sound, right? They're all very similar. Now, 1 is a T or a D sound. T, D, right? They're very similar. And the way you can remember that is when you write a 1, you do 1 downstroke. And when you write a T or a D, you also start with a 1 downstroke. 2 is the letter N. 2 is the consonant N, so the N sound, right? And you can remember that because an N has 2 downstrokes when you write it. A 3 is an M, has 3 downstrokes, or if you rotate the 3 on its side, it looks like an M. 4 is the consonant sound R, so the sound, right? Because 4 ends with a sound. 5 is the letter L, okay? And I like to remember that by holding up my left hand and making an L here, and I see my 5 fingers there. So 5 L or ul sound. 6 is the j, ch, sh sound. They're all very similar as well. It can be any of those. And I like to remember that by saying, okay, a 6 kind of looks like a J, kind of flipped upside down, it has that hook, right? So that helps me remember that j sound. And then 7 is a k or a hard G, g. You could also use a Q if you're gonna make it sound like a k, right? All those sounds are wrapped in that 7. And to remember that, I like to think of a capital K, and you flip it on its side, it looks like 2 7s back to back, right? To help you remember it's a 7. 8 is the sound f or v, and you can remember that because a cursive F looks kind of like an 8. And then finally, the last one is 9. That's a P or a B, a P or B sound, and that, you know, if you flip a 9 around, upside down, flip it around, it looks like a P or a B. So now that we have those sounds, right, we can figure out what the words I made you memorize correspond to in terms of digits. Let's think back to our mind palace. The first location we had, Houdini, right? And what were those 3 key words? If you try to imagine that picture, we had zoom, near, and car. So zoom, remember, we're listening for consonant sounds. So the Z is a 0, right? The M is a 3, so we have 0, 3. Then we had near, which was an N and an R consonant. That's 2 and a 4. And then finally we had the last word, which was car, which was a K and an sound, right? Which is a 7 and a 4. So we have 0, 3, 2, 4, 74, which is March 24th, 1874, for Houdini's birthday. For our second location, we had Copperfield, right? Remember, he was sobbing into a tissue and then he put a leash around himself and walked him off stage, right? So the 3 words were sob, tissue, and leash. So let's translate it. Sob, the S sound, right, was 0. B was a 9, so that's September, 09. And then we had tissue. Okay, now remember, tissue is spelled with 2 S's in the middle, but I'm going for sounds, consonant sounds. All I hear is a T and a Sh sound, right? So those 2 consonants translate to a 1 and a 6. So we have September 16th. And then finally, the year is going to be the last one, which was leash. L is a 5, and then the Sh sound again is a 6. So we have 1956. So the last one is David Blaine, right? He was on your last location in your mind palace, and he was soaring, and then playing a game. So let's translate those words. Soar is S and an R, so that's 0 and 4. Then we had another soar, so that's 0 and 4 again, so that's April 4th. And then finally we had the year, which was game. So G is a 7, and then M was 3, so 1973. That's it. All right, so you've done your first mind palace, you've memorized a few numbers. What do you do next? So typically, a memory palace should be longer than 3 locations. And that's the beauty of mind palaces, is you can make them as long as you want, depending on what you want to store there. What I would recommend is maybe continue going through your house and go through all of the rooms, and each room maybe choose 5 spots around that room. So you can imagine by the end of you going through your whole house, you're gonna have a lot of locations where you can store a bunch of facts and figures and numbers and whatever you want to store. It's also important to remember that every time you populate your mind palace with images, the next time you use it, you may have conflicting images from the previous time. So what also comes in handy too is coming up with separate mind palaces that you can cycle through, and you can have them on the ready for whatever you need to memorize on the fly. For me, for example, I have actually hundreds of memory palaces that I cycle through to memorize numbers, cards, words, all these things. You don't need to do that, but it's nice to have a few on hand. So one last challenge before I go, why don't you try to memorize Chris's birthday? And then in the comments, leave what crazy image you came up with in your mind palace, all right? Here are the digits. It's 032284. So March 22nd, 1984. Leave your crazy description in the comments below.
Come back from your mind palace.
I need to go back. They need me. That was Nelson teaching the Mind Palace and the Major System. Guys, I'm completely floored away by this method, by this whole new thing that actually has a lot to do with magic and has a lot to do with like puzzle solving and all this. It's right up my alley. We're gonna have Nelson as well on another video, and the next video that we're gonna feature is him teaching you how to remember an entire deck of cards. Not this one, because this one's in mnemonic stack. This one, an entire deck of cards. Shuffle deck is, it's the most insane thing you'll ever see. A shuffle deck that you can memorize just by looking at the cards, and you know exactly where all those cards are. And this is just the beginning. So if you guys want to learn more of this stuff, check out Nelson's channel. I linked it below. Nelson, any last words you want to help out our audience with on their journey to becoming memory athletes?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is no matter how bad you think your memory is, it actually isn't as bad as you think. With these techniques, anybody can be a memory champion. I shouldn't be telling them that, but yeah.
You're breeding competition.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys, thanks for watching. Check out Nelson's channel, and we'll see you on the next video. Peace.